I want to invite you this morning to take out a Bible and prepare to follow along in 1 Kings chapter 18 as we talk about fire, walleyes, and the Bible. First, fire and the walleyes. Many winters ago, I sat in an ice house with my 6-year-old son fishing for walleyes, and it was bitter cold outside, and we had the gas heater in between us turned up so hot that the metal sides were glowing red. After an hour of catching nothing, my son finally got a hit, and I really couldn't tell how big it was, but he reeled that thing up, and as kids will do, he just kept reeling, and he reeled the thing right up to the very tip of the pole and right out of the hole, and it was a monster walleye, and my eyes got big. What a beautiful fish. We had to have that fish. But of course, what happened next, you can probably guess. It seemed to happen at the time in slow motion. The fish flopped off the hook and began to drop back towards the hole. No! I dove for the fish. I was not going to let that walleye get away at that time. There was nothing more important in my life than that trophy walleye. Unfortunately, I forgot about the red-hot heater. And as I dove for the walleye, the heater was between me and Luke's hole. And I placed my hand on top of the heater to reach out. It was instant third-degree burn. If I hadn't had ice-cold water to plunge it into, I would have had to have skin grafts and would have been seriously damaged. As it was weeks and weeks of recovery and pain like I had never experienced before. I was so focused on that walleye that I got burnt. And of course, the walleye got away. But how stupid to hurt yourself over a dumb fish. No fish is that important. But how often do we make stupid decisions and risk our bodies and maybe even our souls for something that really isn't worth very much? Call it walleye idolatry. How often do we make something little, something like a fish or some other little thing in our life into, well, a little version of God? We make it a priority, and we wind up hurting ourselves. Well, that's the walleye story, and now for the Bible story. Elijah was a prophet of the Lord, the God of the Bible, the God we worship. And Ahab was the king of Israel, who should have worshiped God, but instead he'd started to put his trust in something else, in something that he could get his hands on, Baals. These were statues, fertility idols, gods of sex and money. Ancient people would offer sacrifices to these idols in the hopes of having more crops and lots of babies for the animals and themselves. Why bother following the Lord when you could get whatever you wanted from Baal? At least that was King Ahab's thinking, and the thinking of a whole lot of the people in Israel. In fact, Ahab wanted to get rid of God and anyone like Elijah who followed God. God was so old-fashioned and out of date. In 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 16, this conflict comes to a head as we hear about the big grudge match on Mount Carmel. This Sunday only, Elijah versus the prophets of Baal. Well, we read about that now from the 16th verse. So Obadiah went to meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. When he saw Elijah, he said to him, "Is that you, you troubler of Israel?" "I have not made trouble for Israel," Elijah replied, "but you and your family have. You have abandoned the Lord's commands and have followed the Baals. Now summon the people from all over Israel to meet me on Mount Carmel. and bring the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Queen Jezebel's table." So Ahab sent word throughout all Israel and assembled the prophets on Mount Carmel. Elijah went before the people and said, "How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him." Elijah is saying, it's time to fish or cut bait, people. Either God is God or something else is, but you can't have it both ways. If you want to make something else Lord of your life, if you want to make something else number one, whether it's a fish or an idol or whatever it is, well, then you choose, but this isn't a buffet. You don't get God and Baal. One of them is real, and one isn't. So who are you going to bet on? But the people said nothing. Then Elijah said to them, "I am the only one of the Lord's prophets left, but Baal has 450 prophets." Wow, it's 450 to 1. That's hardly a fair fight. Elijah feels all alone. You ever feel like the whole world is against you? Specifically, you ever feel like the whole world is against you as a Christian? Like you're all alone in your faith? Do you have conflicts with others in your family because you want to follow God and they don't care? Do you ever feel like you're the only one who sticks up for God at work? Or do you feel like society is trying to shove God out of the picture, chasing after false idols and making it hard on people of faith? Well, that's how Elijah felt. In fact, in the next chapter, he complains to God that he is the only believer left in the entire country. God tells him that isn't true. There are 7,000 people who haven't bowed down before Baal. But Elijah feels like he's the only one left. And on this day, on this particular mountain, he is the only one standing up for faith in God. Still, he stands. And he says, let's have a contest. Let's prove right here and now which God is real, Baal or the Lord. Get 2 bulls for us. Let them choose one for themselves, and let them cut it into pieces and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. I will prepare the other bull and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. Then you call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord. And the God who answers by fire, he is God. Now, this may seem like a really odd way to have a God contest. I mean, if you're going to challenge God to do something miraculous, why not challenge God to make you $1 million? Or make you look like a supermodel? But no. Elijah challenges to a contest of who can set a pile of wood with a sacrifice on top of it on fire. But you see, at this time in Israel, animal sacrifice is a typical way of worshiping. So what Elijah is saying is, let's have a contest to see which God shows up at worship. And furthermore, the people of Baal, they're quick to jump at the offer because they thought of Baal as the god of storms. You know, one of those lightning bolt throwing gods? What an easy task to just throw a lightning bolt and set that pile of wood on fire. They're more than happy to give Baal first crack at it. Verse 25. Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, "Choose one of the bulls and prepare it first, since there are so many of you. Call on the name of your God, but do not light the fire." So they took the bull given them and prepared it. Then they called on the name of Baal from morning until noon. "O Baal, answer us," they shouted. But there was no response, and no one answered.